Hello, Lior. Thanks for joining us at our workshop about the quality of air. We know each other for already some time. We have worked also on some workshops in Slovakia. You have visited Slovakia, and we are also planning a visit to Netherlands. And we already spoke about with our expert from Slovak Hydrometeorological Institute about different factors of quality of air in the cities. And now we would like to hear some examples how the cities can improve the quality of air through active mobility, through public places, and through changing the mindset and changing the life of the people in the cities. So I will be more than happy, and also our participants, to hear your experiences, not only from Netherlands, but also from Israel. So please, if you can share your experiences with us.
Thanks, Milor, for the invitation. I'm going to share my screen, and I hope I can share some knowledge and project. So I was invited to give this presentation, and the title of this presentation might not sound directly connected to air quality, but I promise you that at the end of the presentation, you will see why the right to reimagine the city is indeed very well connected. So I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Lior Steinberg. I'm an urban planner, and I grew up here in the place you see on the screen, Israel, in Tel Aviv. It's the biggest city, the most populated metropolitan, and I would say the cultural and economic capital of Israel, with a beautiful sea line. But it is also a very congested country, actually one of the most congested metropolins in the developed world. And this is, although you see here on the left side some train lines, it has a quite bad public transportation system, no bike lanes. And myself also had to buy a car, sit in traffic, and getting angry at everybody else around me that they make traffic, make noise, without realizing that I am part of the problem. I then moved to Berlin, and I thought, all right, I'm going to cycle there. But very quickly, I discovered that also in Berlin, it's quite difficult to cycle. You see here a typical Berlin bike lane. It is just paint on the sidewalk. And as you can imagine, and probably you have experience from other cities, this is not a very safe way to cycle, where you have pedestrians and tourists just jumping on your imaginary bike lane. And of course, the bike lane stops at the intersection, and then it is very dangerous for most cyclists to just go about cycling relaxed in the city. And also in Berlin, I used what most people do, public transportation, and it was a very comfortable and nice way to go around. And then I moved to the Netherlands. And since then, I'm only cycling, and everybody around me cycles. If you haven't been yet to the Netherlands, you would be happy to hear that in some cities, the amount of cyclists or the modal split of cycling is more than 50%. And in many cities is well above 30%. And I think except of Copenhagen and some other small cities in Europe, there are no cities that are even close to, most cities are not even close to 10%. So the Netherlands is really a cycling heaven, and it's not only the teenagers on the picture, it's also the Prime Minister of the Netherlands who cycles to work. This is Mark Rutte. And of course, children that go safely around the city with a bicycle. And I told you this story not only to introduce myself, but also to explain, and now I remove the picture just to talk and explain that it's not only about mobility, it's about everything. You're moving between countries, you're moving between cities, like myself, moving between different cities and changing my behavior from the car to the metro to the bicycle. And it's not only mobility that changes, it is a lot of aspects of life. And you as professionals, some of you might be architects or urban planners, know that we don't only change how people move in cities. We also change how people play in cities, or children grow up in cities. This is a picture from Groningen, a city in the north of the Netherlands, where children can just play on the street, or are children forced to the edge of the neighborhood to play in the playground, which is always very defended with a fence and protected. Or are we allowed to sport just outside of our house in a park, or are we forced to buy a subscription to a gym, a subscription which is way too expensive and that we never really use, let's admit it? Or how are we creating cities where people can meet each other, get together, or are we creating cities that promote loneliness and the feeling of depression? And despite the fact that we are surrounded by many people, we still feel alone. And of course, pollution. Are we creating cities that are polluted, or cities that are clean? And most of my pictures here are just colorful, nice visuals, but I want to show one graph. So as urban planners, we knew for decades the connection between urban density and yearly energy consumption by transportation. And as you can see, it's a pretty straightforward relation. The more dense a place is, the less energy consumption by transportation. And the less energy consumption by transportation per inhabitant means less air pollution related to transportation. Of course, we can consume a lot of energy, creating this energy by green means, which will reduce air pollution, but still most of our transportation is based on diesel or coal-based cars, which means basically that the only way we can control and reduce air pollution is by reduce the energy we spend on transportation. And this means that we need to create denser cities. And the reason denser cities lead to less air pollution and to cleaner air is because people travel less. And this is actually the key of creating a cleaner, nicer cities. We need to get people travel less, and when they travel less and travel shorter distances, they also pollute less, and therefore they enjoy cleaner air, which allows them to walk and cycle, which in turn makes cleaner air, etc., etc. So it's a cycle of creating cleaner and nicer cities by moving to public transportation, walking and cycling. And as you can see, a lot of European cities are here in this sweet spot of quite dense, not too dense cities, and quite low energy consumption. And I think that in terms of density, Bratislava, for instance, is somewhere here, and it would be interesting to actually measure the energy consumption to transport in Bratislava and the area. So I think that we all saw it during COVID. We didn't create denser cities, but we just stopped traveling, and suddenly the air was nicer. We suddenly heard the birds, and we suddenly saw that the city can be much quieter because we stopped commuting. And I think that this is a great moment, that it's still fresh in our mind. I hope that the COVID will not return, but at least it's fresh in our mind, and not only by professionals, but also by residents who just sat on their balcony to look outside. And so that there is much more space that could be used for other things and now being used for cars. And maybe we can rethink our cities. And we can rethink our public space. And I was lucky to live next to a nice park, but a lot of people also saw outside the window this picture. Actually, this is what I see outside of my office window, which made me really think that if we will show those two pictures to two people, on the left side a park, on the right side a park in Rotterdam, and on the left side a road in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and we will just ask people, what do you prefer? Do you prefer a clean, nice, quiet park, or do you prefer a noisy, rainy, well, it's mostly rainy in Netherlands, but do you prefer a noisy and polluted road? What would people choose? And I was sure that the majority of people would have chosen a nice park, but the history shows that this is not the case. And I want to give you an example from the Netherlands for such a transformation. So this is the Northern Platoon Park in Groningen, in the north of the Netherlands. It's a city of 200,000 people, and this is probably one of the top 5 most dense bike lanes in the Netherlands, which probably makes it one of the densest in the world. I think it has over 20,000 cyclists a day, and it is also going through this beautiful park right next to the city center, which is also a very loved park with a lot of people and couples going out and enjoying. And this is how this park looked a few years ago until the early 90s. And the city wanted to change this road, this polluted, ugly road that was sort of a distributor to the city center. They wanted to turn it into a park. And what they did is that they asked the people, they created a referendum where people could vote whether to keep the road as it is or to turn it into this beautiful park. And the results, it was in the early 90s. I was not living in the Netherlands by then. But when I was told about this referendum, I thought the results would be probably 75% for the park. But these are actually the results. Only 51% of people preferred green environments, or at least in this question. And now the park looks so beautiful like this. And if you ask people, what do you prefer, a park or a road? I'm sure the majority of them would prefer to keep the park as it is. And this case made me think that there is something weird, because I'm sure the majority of people prefer a green, nice park, and yet they keep voting and supporting projects that promote the automobile, creation of more roads, creation of more parking spaces. And I think that there are many reasons for that, but one of the biggest reasons is the lack of imagination. Let me explain it. I don't think that people lack imagination. We all can imagine since we are babies. But I think that because we are so busy with our life, with trying to get to work with our car and find parking and fight our way through a parking lot, and if we're professionals, we get stressed by all residents and citizens that demand more and more and more parking and more roads to ease the parking problem and the traffic jam problems. We are too busy to imagine. And I think that we need to change this lack of imagination to the right of imagination. We need to practice more imaginations in our city. And the way to do it is to try outing, to just go to streets and try out different ways to use them. And I want to share with you 2 examples of projects that we have been doing in the Netherlands with my office, Humankind. So the first one is the modular parklet, And a parklet is quite small, nice solution. The idea is to show people that there is different use of parking spaces. And what you see here is the first parklet we built in Rotterdam, which basically replaces 4 parking spots with places to sit, to park your bicycle, to enjoy coffee outside a cafe, and to just enjoy public life. It is a public space that is maintained by the cafe, but everybody can use there. And those projects, they started, I think, in San Francisco, and they popped out all around the world, including of course Rotterdam, but they also cost a lot of money, because producing such a parklet costs thousands of euros, and it's a handmade work. And then the city asks us to think of a solution that will make it quicker to move around, lighter, and basically easier and cheaper. And what we knew is that the city already has a very successful program. It's called the Fietsvlonder. the bicycle platform. And basically it's this bicycle parking that you see here. You see it sits on a parking space. And the way it works is that you locate a parking spot. You are, in this comic, you can see that you basically place this fietsvlonder, the bicycle platform. It's a quiet, I would say, quite light, not the most beautiful, but easy to place and move thing. Then in step 3, you measure its success. You see if it's effective, if people use it, etc., etc. And lastly, if it works, you just turn it into a permanent bike parking and you move it to the next place. So this is the fietsvlonder. I also know that it appeared in many other Dutch cities after Rotterdam and also around the world. I think this is a beautiful, easy, if not the most beautiful, yet quite brilliant solution. And what we thought is to take this solution and turn the parklets also into quite quick, modular, nice way to move things around. So what we did is that we designed a modular element where neighbors can pick and choose the different elements to the spaces. The way we did it is we basically made the basic designs, and the neighbors that we work with could have chosen the elements, and then we started building it in different places in the city. And the idea is just to show, a better way to use parking spaces, to create spaces for people to sit, enjoy, and basically allow them to reimagine their streets. This one is one parklet we did. We then proposed another one next to another school in Amsterdam. We created one in front of LGBT bar in Rotterdam during the Pride Week, and we also installed a sensor inside the parklet that measure how many people are using it. So it's basically a movement sensor that just checks how much people are moving it. It also measures air quality and noise levels in the area, and it allows you to monitor how well the public space is working and whether you need to improve it. So this is an example for one project, and I will just go now to another project, and this time from another country, another city, from Tel Aviv, where the city is also working on creating a better, nicer, cleaner and less noisy public spaces. And I think that this story is going to resonate with a lot of you who try to maybe reduce car traffic, reduce air pollution in cities. So this is a typical street in Tel Aviv. It is basically turning into a parking lot or a parking garage, although there is, as you can see, an underground parking garage. Also, the street itself was turned into a kind of very dense parking lane. And what we were asked is to, the city basically during Corona decided to close off the street and turn it into a pedestrian road. But as you can see in the picture, it didn't really work out because they didn't remove all the bollards, they didn't remove all the elements, the parking scooters, etc. So the city basically asked us, hey, could you help us make this place more successful? And within a few days, we came out with the idea of creating a very welcoming public space, especially during Corona time. Take out all the seatings of the cafes outside, allow them much more free space outside, and also create those kind of free spaces for people to sit outside, even maybe have a takeaway to support the businesses, but also sit there for free, study, play. And we made this picture, and within 2-3 weeks, we built it. And the results were amazing. But before showing you the results, I want to tell you what happened when we proposed this. So basically, we and the city got so much hate and anger by residents because around 27 of their beloved parking spaces were removed. And finding a parking space in Tel Aviv is very, very, very difficult. It can take you up to 2 hours in a normal day. And when we proposed this, people were extremely angry, and they were basically they were afraid that this change is going to fail and they will lose their parking spaces. But very quickly after day one, we saw that the place is extremely successful. Children started to pop up to play out there. And even, as you can see in this picture, fill up the space, even when it was Corona. And yeah, basically it looks a little bit like the image that we made in the beginning. And the reason I show you this picture is because not only because it's a nice success story, but also to say that a year later, the municipality made an open call to the residents of this neighborhood that were very much against the change in the past and asked them what they would want to do with some budget to improve the public space in the neighborhood. And they all in a high majority chose to improve this square and create more and more elements for children and parents to meet together, and even create more spaces for elderly and to teenagers, etc., etc. So this is a great example how you can improve, create car-free streets, but you cannot do it just by creating Photoshop images or just by closing the street for cars. You need to actually do it and try it, and only then ask the people if they enjoy it or not, because as I said in the beginning, it's very difficult to imagine something if you're not used to it, and you have to experience it before. Thank you very much. That was my presentation.
Thank you very much. I think it was great. It was not only the examples of how it could look, but also to explain your actual personal experience, how to get to this change through exact steps. So I think it's a very good inspiration for all our participants, and we will discuss more about what can be done in Slovak City. So thank you very much for joining us, and I'm looking forward for our next workshops and cooperation. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.